Welcome to this month's video in our Opening Heaven's Door training series. And this ongoing free training course is designed to help and encourage you as you step out in this amazing ministry of healing. And if this is the first time you joined us, then you're especially welcome. And what we're seeking to do in this course is provide a free resource so you can go deeper with this ministry, either as an individual or as part of a team. Now, sometimes this takes the form of my interviewing somebody that knows a particular aspect of this ministry really well, or sometimes we might look at one of the gospel stories about healing to see what we can learn from that. And sometimes we just look at a general topic within the ministry of healing. But this month, rather than focus on a kind of a how-to thing, I want to ponder something that probably goes quite deep with a lot of us. And it's the sense of that we are somehow failing in this ministry. At least we're not as good as other people seem to be in prayer ministry. This feeling might come about in any number of ways. Maybe we listen to other people telling us how kind of successful they are and how many people they're seeing healed through their ministry. Or you just might not be seeing so much happening through your particular prayers. And it may just be that you're surrounded by such need and you'd love to see God working deeper and deeper in the lives of those for whom you're praying. It just doesn't seem to be happening. So what can we do about all of this? How do we overcome this sense of being a failure? Well, the first thing I think I want to say is something about how we actually see ourselves. In a sense, what is our value? Because I think it's very easy to see our value as based on our success in ministry. And of course, it's not. Well, if you remember that occasion in Luke chapter 10, where Jesus sends out 72 people to minister in his name. And after a while, they all come back rejoicing. And they say, "Lord, even the demons submit to us in your name." That they were overjoyed. Their ministry was bearing fruit. They could see that when they prayed, things happened, and it thrilled them. And they came back just bubbling over with that. And what Jesus says to them is fascinating, because what he says is this: do not rejoice that the spirits submit to you. Rather rejoice that your names are written in heaven. In other words, what he's saying is this: your value to God is not about how successful you think you are in ministry. It's not about what happens when you pray. It's not about how much you think God uses you. Your value is this: you are a child of God. That has nothing to do with what we do, with how fruitful we are. It's simply about our relationship. Our value is in the fact we are his beloved sons and daughters. And that should be a constant source of rejoicing for us. Now, actually, that's the first thing to say, that if we spent more time rejoicing in that relationship, we probably wouldn't be worried too much about how successful or unsuccessful we felt we were in ministry. And the thing is, if we base our kind of sense of value on our success rate, then that sense of value crumbles so quickly when we think things aren't working out, when people may forget to tell us what happens when we pray, then our value, just seems to dissipate. But it shouldn't. Our value as a child of God it's eternal. There is nothing that can come between us and the love that God has for us through Jesus. It may also be the case, you see, that God is doing amazing things through your prayers. But because you don't see it, then you rather feel that your value, your worth has gone and his favour has somehow left you. And that's why we keep coming back to this truth. He is our Abba Father. We are his beloved sons and daughters. He takes pleasure in us because of who we are. No matter what we think or we think doesn't happen through our prayers. That's where identity should be based. It's not about what we do. It's about who we are. So let's turn now to some of these issues that, arise, that sort of feed that sense of failure within us. One is, I think, this sense that other people are doing far better than us in this ministry of praying for people. I think deep down, I'd love to ask the question, are they really doing much better than you? It is the case that sometimes people may tend to exaggerate what they see God doing through their ministries. And actually God doesn't need us to exaggerate or to embellish stories. If people aren't exaggerating, what I think they often do is when they tell a story about the ministry they've been involved in, they may often, just through the necessity of shortening a story, truncate it. So it seems like things happened very immediately without perhaps bearing in mind other things that might have been going on when they were praying. So, it might be the case that lots of other people are involved in their ministry. It might be the case this ministry was taking place over quite a long period of time. It might be the case there are other agencies involved in that person's healing. It may be doctors were also involved in that, but that can be kind of left out when we're trying to share a story of what God is doing. Because there's not always the time to fully share the full story of someone's healing and transformation by God. And the point is, I think, that the way some testimonies are shared can feel us feeling as if we're not quite as effective as other people. And I'm not encouraging us to be cynical in any way of other people's stories about their ministry or their testimonies, but let's be aware we might not be hearing the whole story. There might be other things involved, and if we knew the whole story, it might be a little more encouraging because it might just be different from how it's actually told to us. Another aspect of this whole sense of us feeling failures, I think, is the question of unanswered prayer. Why doesn't God seem to answer prayer in the way that we would love him to answer those prayers? I think all too often, we judge the effectiveness of our prayer ministry by whether we can get God to do what we think he ought to do. When you put it like that, it does of course seem a little strange, doesn't it? We might actually be doing wonderfully at putting somebody at their ease. We might be doing amazing jobs at letting them trust us with their story. We may be wonderful at letting them find something of the presence of God in this ministry. But if God has another agenda for that person at that particular time, well, we feel as if we failed. Actually, we've done brilliantly. We created that space for this person to meet with God, for him to do what he wants in their life, and yet we feel we haven't done very well. God might be thrilled at what he was able to do through our ministry to them. It strikes me, I think, that unless we're at peace, letting God do what he really wants to do, then we're likely, I think, time and time again to be frustrated. Because God doesn't do what we want. He's not at our beck and call. He's the Lord. And just because he does things differently from how we think he ought to act, well, I think we have to let him be the Lord in those situations. There's often a saying in ministry, isn't there, that we're called to be faithful and not successful. And our faithfulness, I think, is expressed in our ability to keep ministering to people, even if we may not see the fruit of that ministry over an immediate period of time or even a long period of time. We're there to be faithful, to let them have their encounter with God, their meeting with God, without controlling or seeking to control what God does. And if we can do that, we are being faithful. I actually think we're being successful as well. There's another reason, I think, why sometimes we might think that we are failing in this ministry. And that's to do with what we are carrying as we minister to others. You see, we might well be in need ourselves. We may well have sickness. We may be carrying something we dearly love God to take away from us. But despite much prayer, despite time, it doesn't seem to shift. And at some point, I think that kind of niggle can enter us. Well, if I can't receive God's healing, what right have I to try and pass that healing on to others? Even less helpful when other people hint that to us. Well, if God can't heal you, what right have you got to pray? And we kind of think, well, maybe that's right. Maybe it is a sense of my failure. Maybe I'm not doing as well as I think I should be doing. And it can be a bit demoralizing. Well, St. Paul certainly knew what it was like to be a channel of the grace of God. But he also found that whilst that grace was working through him, sometimes things didn't go quite as he felt it ought to happen. And he certainly carried things in his life he would dearly love to be free from. We read this in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 7 onwards. You see, he writes this. In order to keep me from being conceited, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. And that's why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Now, we're not told what Paul's particular thorn in the flesh was. And certainly at the beginning, it was not something that Paul welcomed. He pleaded with God, to take it away. But at the end, it was something he says he was boasting in, even delighting in it. Now, and there's no sense after that he was discouraged by this. And so if he wasn't, then neither should we be either. And nor should we let other people's words discourage us from ministry we feel drawn into doing despite what we might be going through at that particular time. As we said before, we're not the controllers of what God does. We are called to be faithful ministers. And so I hope in all this we can let go that sense of us failing in ministry in any way. We're not failing. The very fact we're carrying on, the very fact we're trying to learn, the very fact that we're seeking to be his ministers is what thrills him, what delights in him. Because I think the thing is that, as we are ministering to others, God is able to do whatever he is seeking to do in that person's life. If we stop ministering, then I think we close a door for how God can act. We close the way that he can act through us. But by simply carrying on, whether you feel successful, whether you don't, we're keeping the door open for that love and grace of God to flow through us to those who are so, so in need. And so whether it's because of something you're going through yourself, or whether it's because you simply aren't seeing the results, keep going. Keep being faithful. Because in being faithful, you are a channel for what God is seeking to do. Now, I hope you found that helpful. And I encourage you, if you haven't signed up for our mailing list, please do so. And that way you'll get to receive on a monthly basis what we grandly call our digital resource pack. And that comes every month, and it's aimed at giving you resources, not just for the healing ministry, but they are there, but also for helping you in your own private life, your private devotional life, as well as how you seek to minister to others. Simply go to our website, healingmission.org, And there's a page there, I think it's called, rather eloquently, Free Stuff. And you can sign up there and you'll get the resource every month delivered to your email box. And I hope that through that, we can help you grow in both your ministry and your life with God. Until next time, God bless.